Hello guys, welcome to Major's Garage. This is Suellio Almeida. I'm the crew chief for the Formula 3 and Formula 3.5, and we're gonna see my lap here at Watkins Glen today with the Formula 3.5. So let's go straight to the first corner. I'm braking quite hard here, but not too long, since it's pretty fast corner. We have the entire off part here to use. We definitely should use it as a as track. We get no off track, we get nothing. My reference is actually this slight bit of grass here. This is where my limits are and where I want to put my car whenever I get back on the throttle here. So it's a pretty difficult line to do because you have to get back on the throttle here and go on the limit all the way through until this part. So no, I definitely think it's not an easy corner. My braking reference is, I would say the 100, but I don't really look at the 100. What I look at is this patch here of asphalt. I started braking probably 1 or 2 cars after it. As you can see, I'm starting to brake as I go through it, but my maximum pressure is around here. So that's quite a bit after, probably like 3-4 cars after it. So that's my reference there. And I don't maintain the brakes a lot. As you can see, I immediately start releasing and churning. I trail a little bit until the apex, but ideally what I want to do is to basically punch the throttle as soon as we are over the apex. About this inside curve here, what I like to put the car is at the beginning of the second layer. As you can see, I'm not completely over the second layer, I'm in between them. So it's basically, I could call like the middle of the curve, something in between the first layer, which is lower, is leveled with the track, and the second layer, which is pretty high and could unsettle the car a lot. So as you can see, my line here, I'm pretty much at the limit in between them, and that's where I want to put my car in every lap. So I don't have a turning reference, I just have the braking reference, and then my eyes are immediately over to the curb, so I can instinctively start churning, thinking about putting my car on that darker part in between the 2 layers of the curbs. And then as I go here, I punch the throttle. Because this corner is banked, there's a lot of mechanical grip, so the car is pushed against the track as you get back on the throttle, and you basically don't oversteer here, you tend to understeer. The only place where we tend to oversteer though is when we fall from this curb, when we fall to the outside part. As you can see here, we are really falling to an almost off camber, sorry, to an off camber part of the track. And then if we are full throttle here and we're churning hard, we will spin. So what I do, and let's take a look to my steering angle. I'm churning. As soon as I start falling from the curb, I straighten my wheel to correct it, and then I start bringing it back to the right. So let's see that in full speed. Yep. So needs a little bit of practice. You need to remember it. If you think that you're going wide and that you're not going to have enough time to not get enough track there on the grass, and you keep trying to turn, it's going to be dangerous. So be aware of that. Unwind the wheel always a little bit as soon as we go down from the curve. From the curb, it's going to help you a lot. Then we can go just flat out here to the boot, and I definitely don't have a braking reference here. What I do is I try to put my car quite aggressively over this first curb, but I try not to churn as I am over this part. As you can see, I am trying to settle the car basically on a straight line. I'm actually churning a little bit here and there, but ideally what I want to do is to have my car going almost on a straight line until this part right here. So this is my actual reference. So what I'm doing all the way from the entry, going over this curve completely and clipping a little bit of the grass, what I'm doing is only thinking about putting my car exactly here. So this is the point, this is my reference. It's the very end of the inside curb and where it meets the grass, and then it follows on this darker line here. So I want to put my car on this darker line, or at least on this area between the inside darker line and the concrete. We don't want to put the car on the concrete because we're going to need to turn the car and accelerate very early for the exit. So it's very important that we put the car here. It's very easy to go wide here, and this is going to hurt a lot our exit. So again, and here it's very easy to unsettle the car because the curb is quite high. We basically bottom out here. So my trick is, as you can see, I am going to lift as I turn in, but before I go over the curb and while I am over the curb, look at my throttle. So I am actually a little bit on the throttle because I'm trying to balance the car by giving a little bit of weight to the rear and lifting the front a little bit. So when you do that, the car is very, very stable. I mean, it's still not gonna be that easy. You have to practice a lot, so you can do that like 20 laps in a row, but it's doable. So yeah, I think it's the most difficult part of the track. And yep, get a little bit of the grass here, use a little bit of the throttle over the first curb to balance the car, and then put the car at this area. As you can see, when I put my car here, I'm already basically going almost full throttle, because what I want to do is to really load my rears with power, and that will help the car rotate and carry as much speed as possible without going off track later in the last apex. So let's see, I get back on the throttle here, and then I'm going full throttle. I still get a little bit of this curve, but not too much. The most important is that we get the car here, and we don't get an off track here. We can get a little bit of the grass if it goes too hot, but it's slightly dangerous. I prefer not to get the grass, to just get a little bit of the curb, and then the car kind of oversteers slightly sometimes here. I actually like it. When it oversteers here, we end up having a balanced car with slightly hotter rear tires that will be able to do the carousel flat out. So as you can see, I'm doing this corner here flat out. I don't lift, and that's because I did this slight oversteer here. If you don't oversteer here, you will need to lift there. You will need to lift here because the car is going to be with equal temperatures, let's say, and the car will tend to understeer a little bit. So it is maxed out on the front wings. It is maxed out in the right height on the rear, and as stiff as possible. So the actual way to make the car go flat out there is to have a slight oversteer here and take care of the temperature of the front tires. So then you can save that temperature to use it here. Then you will have more grip here. So yeah, quite complicated section. We need to really nail the speeds here so we can put the car here, go back on the throttle, hit this curve quite hard, oversteer a little bit, then let the car go wide to the left. As you can see, I'm almost going over the white line. You could go slightly more than that, but it's slightly dangerous. If you clip the grass here, you die. So I prefer to go as close as possible, but not too much. In this lap, I didn't go too much. And then because of the small oversteer that I had here, I was able to have a good grip on the front tires here, carrying this entire corner on full throttle. Now for this next left-hander, my reference is again the change of color in the track. I brake not too hard, and then I immediately start turning. It's like an early apex, I would say, because what I want to do is to get back on the throttle early as well. So I get back on the throttle quite aggressively. I'm sorry, I don't get back on the throttle quite aggressively. I get back on the throttle quite early, but progressively. That's what I wanted to say. So as you can see, I am very progressively increasing my throttle here because it tends to oversteer a little bit when you're over the curb. So this corner is tricky because if you get the curb, you oversteer. If you don't get the curb, you understeer. So what I prefer to do is to get the curb and at the same time compensate that oversteer behavior by being very progressive on the throttle. Then for this corner, my braking reference is the 100. I brake at 100, and then what I want to do is I want to follow the inside line of this concrete here. As you can see, it's going to close in, it's going to close in, it's going to close into the curb here, where it touches the inside curb, and then it starts going out again. So this is pretty much the apex actually. So as you can see, let's see how my car is going to do this line. So I'm going to put my car here, and ideally what I want to do is to put my car over the inside. So as you can see, the middle of the car here is pretty much, I mean, not exactly, but it's very close to it. And then I keep following, I keep following, I keep following the inside line of the concrete. I keep following the inside line of the concrete until this point. This is exactly the apex. This is exactly where I put my car. It's pretty close actually. I'm almost over the yellow line. We definitely don't want to touch the curb because it's a pretty high curb. So what we really want is to be as close as possible to the yellow line. As you can see here, this is how banked this curb is, how high this curb is. It would definitely a no-go for this car. We tend to oversteer here. So as you can see here on my throttle trace, I am going around 80% throttle, and then I'm waiting. I'm trying to settle. I'm trying to wait for the car to settle a little bit, and then when I'm full confident, I can go full throttle. It always feels like it's going to the grass, but whenever you get more speed, you get more downforce, the car turns more. So it's slightly counterintuitive, so be sure that you're getting back on the throttle quite early. I'm not getting back on the throttle at the apex. I'm actually getting back on the throttle quite early here. I'm getting back on the throttle around here already, and then progressively to 80%, and then after the apex I wait a little bit more, and then I go full throttle. For this next corner, I'm braking at around 150 or 140. I look at the 100 though. I'm braking slightly before the 100. It's a little bit by feel actually. So I'm braking maybe 3 or 4 cars before the 100, quite hard. As you can see, I'm braking pretty hard here in a straight line, following the white line, and then immediately I'm starting to release the brakes. Here is quite similar in how we are using the inside line of the concrete, but here I think I'm a little bit more to the right, and then towards the apex I will get back on the throttle and go towards the outside line of the concrete. But really, I don't really look at the concrete here as a reference. I probably just look at the yellow lines. That's where I want to put my car very close to. And also I'm pretty aggressive on the throttle because it's also banked here on the outside, so you have a lot of mechanical grip and you can be pretty aggressive on the throttle. Coming for this T9, I think it's T9, we want to be over the white line. We want to be as wide as possible because this is gonna be a very difficult corner where the track is actually falling during the corner and you have a lot less mechanical grip than you expect. So I brake not too hard because the track is almost already falling, and then when I start turning, I am very patient with the grip because I know there's less grip than expected. I trail a little bit, but then I'm immediately coasting towards the apex, and I wait a little bit while coasting. I wait a little bit, I wait a little bit more, and then I start getting back on the throttle. Here you see how I really have to wait. I go around 75% throttle, and only when I feel that I am confident enough that I'm not going to spin here, I go back on the throttle. There is a slight bump on the exit, so here, at this point, we have a slight bump here. So be careful with that, because we tend to get a lot of grip going out of the corner, and then boom, we spin. So that's the cause, the bump. There's going to be there always. So be ready for it, wait for it, and have your hands slightly loose on the wheel, so whenever you get the bump, the wheel reacts to it, and you can save the car. For this penultimate corner, I go flat out, no big deal, and then bring the car as early as possible to the left here. Generally, I go slightly over the grass, but I wanted to do a very safe lap for a reference. So, and also for the race, I think going over the white line a little bit close to the grass but not over it is the best way to go. But you can definitely get a little bit of the grass. Actually, because of the muscle memory, whenever I am close to the grass, what I'm doing is I'm not completely lifting the throttle. I'm actually maintaining a little bit of it, because that's what's going to save my car from spinning over the grass. So, as you can see, full throttle, and then as I'm close to the grass, I lift mid throttle, and then when I realized that I was not over the grass, then I could lift completely for the car to have a little bit of turning capability, and then getting back on the throttle at the apex right here. So actually the apex is here, but it's normal to be afraid of the wall there. So because I was carrying a lot of speed, I had to wait a little bit before I got back on the throttle. So there's probably like half a tenth, maybe loss, maybe 400ths of a second loss here, because I waited from here. That would be the ideal throttle point, to here. That's where I got back on the throttle. And as you can see, it was close enough. I'm still not sure if this is the fastest way with this car, because it bottoms out a little bit, but if you're going very quick, the only option is to completely use this wide curb here. But sometimes I was actually quick by using just this part here. Ideally, the entry and positioning the car well to the right here, and putting the car over this yellow line here on the apex will be the most important thing to think of. And yeah, so I hope you guys enjoyed, and see you next week. Bye.